Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first we just hit 3,160 subscribers to the YouTube channel. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially elite channel members Brendon McKinney, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tigers 75, Rye Guy, Salacious Crumb, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, TVO, It's Hoof, The Reno, 12th Man, and Austin Roberts. All right, so in the last week and a half or so, we've taken a look at all the positions of serious need that the Seahawks have that they can address in this upcoming draft. I think we did a pretty good job evaluating receivers, centers, corners. Those are the places where we need help the most, but they are not the only places where we need help. There are some positions where the need may not be dire, but the need is significant. And today we're going to start evaluating those positions. And we're going to go ahead and start with tight end. And I'm actually really excited for this because I really like the tight ends in this draft, especially for the Seahawks. I'll get to what I mean by that in a moment. But first, let's go over and take a look at the kind of tight end we might be looking for in this draft. All right, so Shane Waldron has an extensive history with tight ends, spending many years in his career as a tight end coach, which is one reason why I think he may be looking to add another tight end, even though we did sign Gerald Everett. In 2009, he was the Patriots tight end coach. The tight ends that they had that year were Ben Watson, who was a physical freak. Of course, we all remember how Ben Watson was just this, he was big and he was super fast. I think at once upon a time his 40 time may well have been 4.4. At this point in his career, I don't think it was that, but he was still a physical freak, an absolute specimen of a tight end. 6'3", 255 pounds, 4.52 40. And then the backup tight end was Chris Baker, 6'3", 261 pounds, 4.85 40. So he was very much a traditional blocking, slower type tight end. Not without his ability to catch the occasional pass, but he was very much not a playmate, not a playmaker. I think we all get that. So a few years later in Shane Waldron's career, he was a tight end coach again for the UMass Minutemen. This is college. I know it's different, but we can still maybe learn something about the kind of tight end that Waldron might like. He had really one tight end over the 2 seasons he was the tight end coach for the UMass Minutemen. It was Rob Blanchflower, who was pretty big, especially for a small college. He was 6'4", 260 pounds, and he ran a 4.82 40. So he was big and slow and plodding, but he was actually a pretty featured part of their passing attack at UMass. Now, the UMass Minutemen those 2 years were awful, but you work with what you have, and I seriously doubt their lack of ability at tight end was the reason why they were terrible. So, notable. And then he spent a year in 2017 as the Los Angeles Rams tight end coach. And we already know that he had Gerald Everett as one of his tight ends when he was there, and we brought him over. But the other tight end, the primary tight end when he was at the Rams in 2017 and onward, was Tyler Higbee. And Tyler Higbee was a big dude. 6'6", 255 pounds, 4.8 40. So, honestly, if you take a look at the tight ends that Shane Waldron has worked with in his career as a tight end coach, and by the way, this also includes as a coach in general, because he would go on to become the passing game coordinator for the Rams from 2018 to 2020 and work with these same collection of tight ends pretty much his entire time there. Most of them had a lot of weight to them. Ben Watson, 255, Chris Baker, 260, Rob Blanchflower, 260, Tyler Higbee, 255. Everett was unusually small for a tight end that Waldron worked with. And I know this is a relatively small sample size, but I wanted to take a look at the tight ends that Waldron had familiarity with, because we know tight ends are important to him because he was a tight end coach many times in his career. So if you really just want to take a look at his recent NFL experience, just look at what's happened on the Rams over the last 4 seasons, where he's had 2 very high-use tight ends, or at least somewhat high-use tight ends with Everett and Higbee. So Because Waldron brought Gerald Everett over from LA, I think it could be inferred that he would like to get his version of a Higbee next to round out his ideal offense. So he's got the smaller, faster tight end in Everett. What if he wants another tight end to round out the offense who is bigger and slower? Or in the case of Higbee specifically, a big, slower tight end with good blocking and yard after the catch skills. Because even though Higbee is big and slow, he's not a non threat in the passing game, not at all. He's actually a very good pass catcher. And he had a 700 plus yard year just a couple years ago. So, yeah. Could it be that Waldron would like to bring in a tight end who is big and strong and maybe a little slower, but still a threat in the passing game? So basically, Will Dissly, if Will Dissly didn't screw up his career with those injuries. Rest in peace. So, with that in mind, let's plow forward and start taking a look at some of these tight ends in the draft. Now, the tight ends in this draft are really good for the Seahawks and the picks they have because you have one tight end who's going to go top 15 guaranteed, probably top 10 guaranteed in Kyle Pitts. And then you have nothing else until basically the probably mid second round. So if the Seahawks choose to pursue a tight end with their top pick, they're going to have a chance at all the best tight ends in this draft who are not named Kyle Pitts because he's just built differently. But I really like this class of tight ends for the Seahawks specifically. So today we're going to take a look at the tight ends who are going to go in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round in all likelihood. And we're going to evaluate which ones we think would fit in the best and which ones we think could have the best NFL career. So we're going to start with my favorite, Pat Freiermuth from the Penn State Nittany Lions. And this guy, they don't call him Baby Gronk for no reason. He's 22 years old from Penn State. He's big. He's got the Higbee size. He's 6'5", 250. You know he's going to add a little bit of weight, so he's going to be basically the same size as Higbee and just a touch faster, 4.7240. Had a nice college career as a receiving threat in his first year, 26 catches, 368 yards, 8 touchdowns, great red zone threat. 2019 was his best season, 43 catches, 507 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 2020, 23 catches, 310 yards, 1 touchdown. This guy's a boss. And because of that, it's somewhat unlikely that he's going to be available for the Seahawks at their 56th overall pick. So, unfortunately, I have to say that if he falls to us, we will definitely have to consider ourselves lucky, but it's on the table. Sporting News thinks he'll be a high second rounder. Draft Network, Pro Football Focus, and ESPN think he'll be mid second rounder. Tankathon and Pro Football Network think he'll be a late second rounder, and Walter Football think he'll go from the 2nd to 3rd. So, outside chance he's there at 56, but I get the sense that he's going to be a mid second rounder. I'll just say that. I'll just put that out there. So, what I can say about Freiermuth as a player, he's the number 2 tight end in this draft on every single website I can find. Everyone thinks this guy is second only to Pitts. He should be a big-time impact receiver in the NFL immediately. He just has those skills. He just has those talents, those attributes. Should be able to immediately become a big-time NFL receiving threat. He's got good hands, great route runner. No reason why this guy shouldn't excel as a rookie. He's also physical, and he knows how to use his size well, so he's just a bad man. And he's fast for his frame. Like I said, there's a reason why they call him Baby Gronk, and it's because he plays kind of like Gronk. So if you want to find the next Rob Gronkowski, look no further. Obviously, he's not the super freak athlete that some tight ends are, but I feel like if you take a look at whatever it is, maybe we can go more in this direction for our other tight end. Now the counterpoint would be Everett's only on a 1-year deal, but if we're just thinking about 2021, I wonder if Freiermuth would fit in well. He has the attributes to be a good blocker, which we know that Waldron might be looking for in a tight end to add to the offense. However, one thing I can say about him is that he didn't really develop his blocking skills as much as some people expected. I feel like looking at the way he plays and just looking at his body type, he can be a good blocker, but it hasn't happened yet. So TBD, Also, he's got a little bit of an injury concern, but I'm not worried about that at all, really. So, yeah, Pat Freiermuth, love him. Prospect number one. One of the guys I would take at number 56 overall without a trade back. All right, tight end prospect number two. We're going to go to Brevin Jordan of the Miami Hurricanes. 20 years old, very, very young, this guy. He's a little shorter than we might have liked. He's really very Gerald Everett-ish, I think. That's a little bit of an issue if you think Everett's going to be here for the long term. It's not an issue if you think Everett's going to be gone after this year. He's got a good 40 time for a tight end, 4.64. He's a really good athlete overall. You watch him play, you can just see the Antonio Gates and Travis Kelce type stuff on him. Really nice athlete. Not huge or anything, but big enough to play tight end in the NFL for sure. Had a good college career at Miami, 2018, 32 catches, a little under 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2019, 35 catches, 500 yards, 2 touchdowns. Best year yet in 2020, 38 catches, 576 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I watched him play a little bit in 2020, and he did it all, man. He caught a lot of short passes and turned them upfield for big gains. He caught deep passes down the field, down the middle of the field, lined up at receiver. He's great. Sporting News really likes him and thinks he's going to go in the mid-second. Walter Football says second or third, and everyone else thinks he's a third rounder. Draft Network thinks he'll be a very high third rounder. Tankathon thinks he'll be a mid-third. ESPN, Pro Football Network, and Pro Football Focus thinks he'll be a later third rounder. So definitely in range for the Seahawks to get, almost certainly. So Brevin Jordan, he's the number 3 tight end in this draft on every single website I could find. There was once again consensus. This guy is the third best tight end in this draft. He lines up all over the place. He made plays all over the place. He could line up in the slot, on the edge, line up tight, line up in the backfield. He did all kinds of different stuff. He has proven to be a capable blocker. He does need to get better, but it seems to me that his heart is in the right place when he goes to block. And I think that counts for something. So for now, I'll say that he's a capable blocker, but his main asset is his dynamic receiving talents. He's a very good athlete for his size. He's got good ball skills. And most appealing, maybe, is the fact that he's a yard after the catch monster. He's absolutely somebody who can take those little screen passes and dump offs and turn them up the field. He does need to get a little better as a route runner. He does need to add a little bit of strength. These are things that you would expect from a rookie, especially one who's freaking 20 years old. Now, again, his attributes make him arguably a little bit redundant with Gerald Everett already on the roster. But again, Everett might not be here for very long. And if Everett and Brevin Jordan are both going to be really good players for us, then I can live with a little redundancy, right? So there is one thing with Brevin Jordan that should be mentioned before we move on. He did not test very well at the Pro Day. I know that he did not test as well as some people were anticipating, and that's hurting his stock a little bit. That's pushing him down the board a little bit. But it all depends on how much stock you put into that kind of stuff. And I'm not super worried about it, but I did notice it. And I think it's fair to say that had he tested better, he would probably be being earmarked as a late second or early third instead of kind of being all over the place in the mid third. So Gerald Everett, I like him. Not somebody I would take at 56 necessarily, but somebody I would absolutely be willing to trade back into the early third to get. So that's tight end prospect number 2. Let's go to prospect number 3. Tommy Tremble of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This guy is very interesting to me. This guy, I'll give you a little bit of a preview of it. He takes his blocking very seriously. 22 years old, like I said, Notre Dame, 6'4", 248 pounds, 4.5940, so little smaller than we might be looking for, but it's not a big deal, I don't think. He's got enough size. And he's going to put on a little bit of weight in the NFL probably, so I think he's got it. 4.640 time is very good for a tight end, very workable for a man of this size, especially when you look at how he plays. So the first thing you're going to do when you look at this stat line, though, is say, what the hell? This guy didn't do anything in college. This guy was basically Will Dissly in college. What are we talking about here? 400 receiving yards in his college career. We just looked at a couple tight ends who had more than 400 yards in a single season. Some of those guys looked like they could have 400 plus yards in a single month. Never had more than 20 catches in a season, four career touchdowns. What are we doing, guys? Right? Yeah. Okay. Hold on to that thought. We'll get there. Sporting News and the Draft Network both think he's going to be a mid third round pick. Pro Football Focus says late third round pick. ESPN says early fourth. Pro Football Network says mid fourth. Walter Football does not have him ranked at all, which I believe to be an oversight on their part, a clear oversight. But to me, this guy is probably going to be a late third round pick unless he moves one direction or the other quickly right before the draft starts. So, this guy has the talent. He's got a great mix of size and speed. You saw it above. The attributes are there. The talent is there. As for his stats, that's pretty easy to explain because he played behind Cole Kmet and Michael Mayer in college. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for those guys to for Tommy Tremble to catch passes because Cole Kmet and Michael Mayer were doing all the work there. He did a lot of blocking in college as the tight end too, and he took his blocking seriously. This guy is the best blocking tight end in college football, and the fact that he is a potential dynamic receiving threat is just a nice bonus. This is not a Will Dissly situation where all he does is block. This is not a Blake Bell situation where all he does is block. This guy can catch passes. He just hasn't done a lot of it yet. He's got a, and it's not even like Jason Witten situation. This guy's a great athlete. He just needs the opportunity to stretch his legs, and some birds aren't meant to be caged, right? You got to let them out of the cage. He gives great effort and has great motor. I saw him lay some sick blocks at Notre Dame, absolutely putting people on their asses. His production in college is still noticeably weak, and anyone who wants to point that out and criticize him for it is not wrong. I think there's some context that needs to be included here, but yeah, 400 yards in his career is not good. And because of that, you might not see Tommy Tremble do a ton as a rookie. He will probably need to develop for a year, but maybe that's a year we can afford to give him. And even as a rookie, I expect him to be a great blocker. He's probably going to be a rich man's Will Dissly, and we already have the normal man's Will Dissly. So yeah, Tommy Tremble. Take him seriously, guys. I like him. Okay, so those three guys I like a lot. Tremble and Jordan, I wouldn't necessarily take in the second. Freermuth, I would, but I would be excited for all three of these guys. So now we're going to move on to number four, and these guys are kind of on a different tier, but I still like them a lot. So let's go to prospect number four. This is Hunter Long of Boston College. This guy is not quite as exciting athletically or physically as the above three, which is why I put him on the next tier, but he was very productive in college. He's got the size. He's 6'5", 255 pounds. He's got a good 40 time, honestly. So it's not like he's a bad athlete. 4.6540 on this frame is solid. And take a look at this production. Minimal contributions in 2018, but 2019 he breaks out. 28 catches, 500 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then in 2020, he was the most utilized tight end in the nation. 57 catches, 685 yards, five touchdowns. And because of that production and his combination of size and speed, quite a few of the publications think he's going to be a late third rounder, and some think he's going to be a fourth rounder. One thinks he'll be a early fifth. I expect him to go somewhere around the early fourth round personally. If I had to take a guess, maybe late third. So Hunter Long, most utilized tight end in the nation in 2020. He's a natural pass catcher. He runs good routes. He's got great hands. He's got great ball skills. I saw him make a lot of contested, tough in-traffic catches when he was at Boston College. He's very versatile. I saw him line up at receiver. I saw him line up tight. I saw him line up in the backfield. Saw him do a lot of different stuff. He's got good speed for his size. I mean, you cannot say anything bad about a 4.6540 time when you're 6'5 and 225. However, despite his good speed, he's not a great overall athlete. Now, if you're looking for a Tyler Higbee type, that's not that big of a deal. Higbee's not a tremendous athlete either. He could stand to get stronger. I think that as a blocker, he does have some room to grow. Now he's big enough to he talks the part, he walks the part if you just look at him. But I do think he needs to get to be better blocker. I think he's fine. I think he's good, but I think he could get better, especially in the NFL. There are a couple of technique issues in his game that he overcame with his giant frame and impressive speed. He's a very logical fit as a tight end too in the NFL, and he should be able to do it pretty quickly, I think. I think as a rookie, he could contribute as a tight end too behind Everett and maybe be our version of a Tyler Higbee. So, not as excited about this guy just because he's not a great athlete, and he seems very safe, not sexy to me, but I like Hunter Long, and there's something to be said for all that production. All right, that's prospect number 4. Let's jump over to prospect number 5, and this is the Ole Miss stud. It is Kenny Yeboah. Whoops, my bad. All right, Kenny Yeboah, 22 years old from Ole Miss. You may remember him from torching Alabama in a game last year. One of the games that put him on the map. 6'4", 247 pounds. Size is pretty good. 4.540. This dude is a freak. This dude can run a 4.540 despite being 250 pounds. 5-year career. Some of it was spent with Temple, I think. At first, he wasn't doing all that much. Honestly, when he was at Temple, he wasn't utilized as much more than like a red zone threat in his final year there. He didn't really break out until 2020. He had 27 catches, 524 yards, 6 touchdowns, and his only year as an Ole Miss. What are they? The Rebels? Something like that. So if you just take a look at his final year in college, you'll see a tight end who is dynamic and has the ability to be a great threat in the passing game. Now, where he might go, Pro Football Network says 4th round, Draft Network says 5th, and ESPN says 7th. Pro Football Focus and Walter Football both say he's not going to get drafted. I really feel like these guys are missing the boat a little bit. I see Kenny Yeboah being a late 4th to early 5th round pick personally. I feel like some of these guys are just missing the boat because he only had one productive year, but you know, there's a lot of contextual stuff there, right? So what we can say about Yeboah is he is remarkably fast for his size, and he was versatile in how he was used during his career and where he lined up. I watched highlights. I saw him line up wide. I saw him line up in the slot, saw him lined up tight, backfield. He can do it all as a tight end in the NFL, I believe. He's got good hands. He's got a good route runner. Again, go watch his highlights against Alabama last year. He tortured them. I think he had well over 100 yards and a couple touchdowns in that game. Very deadly up the middle of the field. This dude was great at just getting behind the linebackers, sneaking in between coverage, and bringing in quick catches over the middle. A lot of touchdowns were brought in that way. He had 12 touchdowns in his career. A lot of them came that way. He's great in the red zone. Ole Miss and Temple seem to like to use him a lot as a red zone threat. He's only a passable blocker. I will concede that. I didn't see anything from him that told me that he's going to be a great blocker, which makes him maybe not exactly what we're looking for in an immediate tight end too. But I think his heart's in the right place, personally. At this point in his career, if you got him, he would probably be a developmental project. But I think he's a good one. And I think this guy could really surprise you. So Kenny Yeboah is my 5th tight end prospect to take in the early to middle rounds of the draft. All right, time for prospect number 6, the final one of this video. I know this video went long, but I like these tight ends, guys. I can't help myself. And finally, Trey McKinney of the Georgia Bulldogs, another Georgia player. Let's take a look at him. This guy is got the size, and he's not very fast. So this guy's a little more Higbee-like, maybe, you could say. However, despite the fact that he's not that fast, he was still a dynamic playmaker in the passing game in college. 22 years old, he had kind of a wash of a freshman year, and then he had 2 solid years, and then 2020 was cut short, injuries, COVID. So he never really put up dominant stats in college. I think that if you combined these 4 seasons, you would have, a little more than 600 yards and 3 touchdowns, 60 catches, less than 60 catches. It's not great. Walter Football likes him a lot. They think he can go anywhere from the 3rd to the 5th. ESPN says 4th. Draft Network says 5th. Pro Football Network says 5th or 6th. And Pro Football Focus says 6th round. So I think he's probably going to be an early 5th rounder, honestly. But it wouldn't surprise me if his talent gets him to creep up into the late 4th. He's a good athlete. He's got good body control. The stats don't totally tell the whole story on how his abilities as a pass catcher. He was the move tight end for the Georgia offense. He's a willing blocker. I don't know if he's a great blocker, but so far he's shown the ability to be decent at it. And I think he can develop into being a good blocker at the NFL level. He's got the size. He's going to have to become a good blocker with this 40 time, I think. So I'm not too worried about him there. He's an excellent player, yards after the catch wise, and we know that Waldron likes that. He's versatile enough to fit into just about any offense. I don't really have too much bad to say about Trey McKinney as far as a 4th round to 5th round prospect goes. I think he's a really nice overall athlete, despite not being super fast. I think he's got the frame. I think he's got just kind of the all-around package. I watched him play, and I was like, this guy's just, he's not as fast as some of the guys we were looking at. He's not the great athlete that some of the guys were, but he's good enough in all these areas. And if he's there in the 4th or 5th round, I would at least consider tossing one of my picks towards him. So that's all the tight ends I have today. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. Next up, we're going to take a look at the sleeper tight ends in this draft. But let me know what you guys think about these 6. Would you take one of these half dozen with an early to mid-round draft pick? Would you add any of these guys to the team? Who do you think could help the most? Do you not like any of them? Did I miss anybody? Just let me know in the comments, and see you guys later. Peace out. Go Hawks.